My name is Imani Davis. I'm one of the film programmers, and I'm super excited to be here with the amazing filmmaker Joanna Hogg. Hi, Joanna.
Hi, I'm really happy to be here. I wish I was there in person because I know what a great theatre it is, having been there before. But anyway, I'm in London.
Yes, in London. So thank you so much for joining us for a conversation. I'm super excited to talk about this film, which is just stunning and haunting, and let's get into it. Um, so what, just like thinking about the tone and the vibe of the film, I read a lot about just the process of kind of writing this film, talking to Tilda about it. Why don't you give us a little history of just like how this story came to be and the idea for the film?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try. I'll try
Yeah.
not make my answer too long because obviously making any film is a complicated process. But I guess just sort of briefly in terms of the history of it, I actually wrote it in 2008. Not as a ghost story so much, but as a story about a mother and daughter, a middle-aged daughter and an elderly mother going for a break in a hotel. And the kind of were spooky elements to it, but anyway, it turned out very differently when I then, because I had to down tools. I wasn't able to make it in 2008 really, but out of guilt, just as Julie feels in The Eternal Daughter. I felt like, well, my mother's still alive. I'll never be able to tell her what I'm doing, let alone show it to her. And I couldn't bring myself to do it. So then I moved on to another film instead, which was Archipelago. And then making the souvenirs somehow helped open a door, even though my mother was still alive then. It sort of helped me open a door into how to make this, or try to make this film again. And because of the creation of Rosalind, played by Tilda in Souvenir Part 1 and Part 2, that somehow Tilda kind of came into the mix. So it was less sort of intensely about my own mother. And then the ghost story element came about, actually. This is all sounding really mixed up and complicated, but before I made the souvenirs, I had a moment of wondering what I was going to do next after I made Exhibition, my third film. And I had a conversation with Martin Scorsese, who's been an amazing supporter of my work over the years. I had a conversation, or rather I asked him, his advice, what shall I make next? And at that point, I was thinking about the souvenirs, but he'd encouraged me to make a ghost story. And he actually said, well, make a ghost story. So I did the opposite in the end. I made the souvenirs and then came to the ghost story again anyway after that. And then during the first lockdown we had in the UK, I don't think our lockdowns were necessarily parallel to yours, but in around, I guess, March, April 2020, I had time on my hands to think what I was going to do, and also a lot of anxiety around for all of us, obviously, in that time, thinking a lot about mortality. And so the story of The Eternal Daughter popped up again, and I started writing it. But I was also talking to Tilda about playing Julie. At that point, she was going to play Julie, but an elderly actress or non-actor was going to play Rosalind. And then it was actually Tilda's idea to, she just dropped into the conversation one day, what if I play both parts? And it just immediately made so much sense because, now you've all seen the film. It's so much about projection and a daughter's identity very much wrapped up in her mother's. You sort of don't know where the daughter begins and the mother ends, and it's so that confusion immediately became much more apparent with that idea of her playing two parts. I think I'm going to stop there for a moment because that's a lot of things.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about, just the journey of it. And I'd love to just talk more about Tilda, as I just read about the filming and your relationship. You two have known each other since you were 10. So what are those conversations like of just when did you know that you wanted to be a filmmaker and her an actress, and then these beautiful collaborations started?
Wow. Well, I wish she was here joining me with this because it's really nice to sort of reminisce together. I
Yeah.
mean, we've had this sort of friendship that's where we've had periods of time apart and then periods of time together, but it never feels like we're separated in a way. But we've, as lives go and parallel lives of friends, there's some sort of gesturing madly. It's like yeah, these moments of sort of meeting, and then we go off and do things and come together again. And yeah, we were at school together. Tilda was 10, I was 11, and then when we left school at slightly different times, and she went off to university, and then I went off to work as a photographer's assistant. So we had very different sort of beginnings as teenagers in a way. And my photography led to going to film school, and then Tilda was at Cambridge University where she was doing some acting, and I was casting one of my films, actually not Caprice, which was my graduation film, but another film before that, that we shot in March 1985. And actually, sadly, that film's lost. It was shot on 16 mil, most beautiful black and white, and the negative has just disappeared. I can't find it anywhere, so I'm afraid that's gone into the atmosphere. And in fact, it was the first thing that Tilda did on film. And then yes, then we made my graduation film. Then there was a period of time where she went off to make other films, and I was just sort of gathering my confidence as a filmmaker. I then went into television. I mean, yeah, so many things to say, but I guess we were talking all the time, and the conversations we have together in some ways haven't changed so much. I mean, I think we always feel, or I feel, I should change as I get older, but I realized actually making the souvenirs that actually, and looking back at my diaries and things that I'd written when I was younger, I sort of realized actually, yeah, maybe we don't change so much. I'm not sure if I don't think that's a bad thought. In a way, there's something comforting about that. But anyway, she and I have had this conversation over the years, and then we had a long period, like 30 years, of not working together, and then coming together when I made the souvenirs. So, and she was obviously playing a supporting part in that film. So when we made The Eternal Daughter, it was just the biggest pleasure to work together every day. She's in every frame of the film, as you've all seen. And it was really, I think that we were able to go to the emotional depths we went to because of our friendship. I don't think it would have been possible. We both say this, that if we hadn't known each other so well, we wouldn't have trusted each other so much.
Definitely, definitely. And just with the added aspect of playing two roles. And I think I read in another interview about the film that you don't do like a full screenplay per se, but more of a document with your films. So just that trust with you two in that collaboration is amazing to hear about.
And actually, to say about the process a little bit more, I mean, these are things I would never say if everyone hadn't just watched the film, but the whole idea, the whole conceit of Tilda playing both parts was quite challenging at the beginning because of the way that I work, and the scenes and the dialogue is mostly improvised. It just seemed an impossibility to be able to do that with Tilda playing both parts and also shoot in story order with all the freedom that gives me, or has given me with the other films. It was really a bit of a head scratcher to work out how to keep to that same process, which is so important. It's really about freedom to change the story. I'm so much more interested in creating the story in the moment that we're filming than doing it all beforehand on paper and then doing a sort of version of that when you're shooting. So it was a credit to Tilda's amazing skill with both parts and a sort of making certain decisions about how to shoot the film, and to have Tilda as Rosalind or Julie very much as portraits and not have a double, not have a body double there. I mean, I didn't want there to be that over the shoulder shot because it was partly, I didn't want Tilda to be acting opposite somebody who was just there as a stand-in. The only stand-in was myself, and that was only in the very first rehearsal that we did, and that was in order to create the flow and the structure of the scene and the dialogue. And then Tilda was on her own, so she's looking out, not at anybody, except just to the side of the camera, or depending on what the shot was. So she was able to, her incredible imagination, was able to conjure up these two characters. And I find, with the hundreds of times, thousands of times, I don't know, I've watched the film, I'm still believing in these two characters. I don't see. I don't even see Tilda there, but I certainly don't see Tilda there twice. I feel that she just embodies these two people in such a nuanced way. But anyway, I don't want to be saying that to you because you would have all had your own thoughts about what you think about her performance. But what we were both wanting was not for it not to be a performance. So it's I think it's sometimes I feel the subtlety of it belies the complexity and the skill of what Tilda achieved.
Yes, for sure. And with just your style and your kind of mastery of improvisation in film, as well as this kind of return and these big things of memory, how do you think those two kind of work together of these thinking of like these cerebral productions that you have and really honing in on memory and history, as well as just your style for improvisation?
Yeah, I mean, that's hard to answer. I mean, the only thing I can think to say about that is that even though there's all the improvisation, it's not that I haven't written anything beforehand. So the ideas about memory, about my own history, my own relationship with my mother, where this story might go and how it'll go in the direction that it does. I mean, I'm chewing over the ideas for months and months. So it's not something quick that I do beforehand and then we do everything when we're shooting. It's like, well, actually, I was thinking about it the other day. I'm writing, and in fact, in the case of The Eternal Daughter, I challenged myself to write a ghost story, a short ghost story, because I've been reading lots of ghost stories by M.R. James, by Kipling, Edith Wharton. I mean, many wonderful short ghost stories. So they were inspirational. So in a way, my writing is almost like a separate form. I get pleasure out of doing it, but not in a way that becomes a blueprint for the film. So but in those months, I'm going very deep into emotional territory that can sometimes be quite difficult for me, because I had a very close relationship with my mother, and in fact she was alive when we made the film, but then she died when we were editing it. I mean, she was 93, so she was a great age. Not that that makes it any easier to process, but anyway, my relationship with her has been, very much a theme of my life. I think that's the same for a lot of people. Their relationship with their mother is a sort of key relationship. So that, but just to say, yes, the ideas and the themes and the idea of how memory works, all of that is thought about through reading, sometimes watching films. I find films I don't use so much as inspiration because it's too direct somehow. Maybe an old film is easier than something contemporary, because then I'll always be feeling like, oh, well, I'll never be able to achieve that, or it'll take my confidence away rather than build it. Whereas reading is a bit more oblique or something. So, yes.
Fascinating, and just thinking about the process and the writing and the reading. I know you're a production designer, someone you've worked with on almost every film. Your cinematographer is a frequent collaborator. What was it like telling them about this story and the process of preparing for production, because the tone and the production design and the visual elements and the techniques are just so consistent and beautiful throughout.
Well, that's really nice to hear, and those relationships with my collaborators. I mean, with Stéphane Collonges, production designer, I've worked with him for now, I haven't counted the years actually, but since Unrelated, I mean, probably about at least 16 years we've been working together. So in that time, we've developed a friendship, but also, you know, have had so much experience and discussion over the films that we want to make and how we want to make them. So it's very exciting to work with those collaborators who I've worked with from the beginning of my feature films anyway. And the same with Hella, my editor. She's also worked with me for the same amount of time, as edited all my films. And so there, it's hard to separate sometimes, you know, rather like a good friendship, you know, sort of, you know, how sometimes the ideas come about. Or I mean, I think when you collaborate with someone that you've known for that long, you become much braver. So we sort of egg each other on. And with Stéphane, we were talking about The Eternal Daughter back when I was writing it in 2008, because we even got as far as looking for locations. And at that point, it was set in North Norfolk. I found another hotel, actually one that my mother and I had actually stayed in, and maybe that was part of the problem of making the film then. It was just too close. It was too much, my mother and myself. It was too close to home. Not that that normally puts me off, but in that, with that relationship, it was just too much. So so that when Stéphane and I found the Sowton Hall, which is the house you see that you've just seen in The Eternal Daughter, we were really excited. And it was very much, and for me, it was somewhere that I hadn't been with my mother, so I didn't have that association. So I was able to you know, we were able to bring those Gothic elements in, and I still am really excited about genre. And I know some of you will be thinking, well, I didn't go the whole way with the genre, but I guess I did my own thing with it, and I'm still really interested in it. And in fact, I've been watching a few ghost films recently, and it's made me I'm still interested. I would like to do another film in a way, maybe not straight away, but that's also, you know, ghostly, but maybe more going further into the genre thing. So I'm still really fascinated in that. I think it's something about having a shape, a sort of shape that we recognize, but then distorting it.
Definitely, yes. And I think just reading about it again, I think a lot of fans of your work are just so excited by the transition that you kind of made with like going into ghost stories and such. It's just like so beautiful of taking your own style that we're going with the Souvenir and past films, and then seeing it in this genre, which you really made your own, is awesome. So that's great to hear that you're still interested in it.
Well, thank you.
Yes. So, and you spoke a little bit about shooting on film. This was shot on film, yes?
This was shot on film. It was Super 16, and I'm really now, I mean, I'm going in the opposite direction to what people would normally do. Well, in that I started off shooting digitally. Unrelated was shot with a Sony Z1, not even a professional camera. And then the cameras have gradually got a bit more sophisticated. And then with the Souvenirs, they were shot partly 16 millimeter and partly digital. And then The Eternal Daughter is completely film. And I really love it. As someone who improvises, not just in terms of what's in front of the camera, but the whole thing's improvised in a sense. It's actually a necessity in a way to shoot on film, because it gives everyone, most of all for me, a boundary within which to work. Like my takes can only be as long as a roll of film. And I love knowing that I've only got a few seconds left on a roll. There's something really exciting about it. I think it just sort of energizes the whole process.
Wow, yes, that is amazing. And I know that you also spoke about how when taking this film to outside partners, BBC, A24. I think you said that this was very quick, a quick process of going into production. So with the film element, with the shooting Tilda and two different characters, how was that process of going to these outside partners, and what do you think made them pick it up so quickly?
Yeah, I mean, it was barely going out to them. I mean, they were aware of that I was developing this, and I spoke to Rose Garnett, who's now at A24. When we made The Eternal Daughter, she was head of BBC Film. So as head of BBC Film, I was discussing with her, because she'd been such a fantastic collaborator with the souvenirs, and I was just discussing. I went and had a walk with her in the park, actually, sort of in I think it was just before we had the first lockdown, and talking to her about it, and she got really excited about it. And then I was talking to David Lau from A24, and he was getting really excited about it. And this was before I even knew what it was going to be exactly. So they were all partners in crime, actually. So it wasn't the question of me going, throwing down a document on a desk and saying, this is what I want to make. They already knew exactly what I was up to and were supporting it. And then, of course, that came the day of deciding, right, they're going to put finance into it. And so it was really a dream in that sense. I mean, actually, for me, it was quite scary because it happened so quickly. I hadn't quite arrived there ready to do it, and I had strange fantasies when we were getting it together, but actually opposite to what most people would think. This is going to sound ridiculously strange, that I sort of almost wanted there to be a kind of COVID outbreak or something that would stop me making the film, because it was happening. It was just, it was like a sort of express train, and nothing was going to stop it. Nothing did stop it, actually, incredibly, given that we were shooting during the second lockdown.
Wow.
Most people weren't able to work. And then because we were shooting in Wales had a different, they had different rules at different times. So it sort of worked out perfectly. But it was scary because it was just, it was fast.
Yes, and it's in one location. I feel like it's definitely the perfect kind of film to make during that time. And you spoke a little bit about how you found the house, which is beautiful. There were people staying in it. You stayed in it, yes?
I stayed in it, which was another scary thing. And only a few of us. There were just 5 of us who were staying there. And I made the decision for 2 reasons. One, because it was going to be super convenient that I would get out of bed and I would be on set immediately, so I wouldn't have any travel time and then I could wander around the house and come up with ideas. And Ed Rutherford, the director of photography, was also staying there, so that was super convenient. And but the only problem was that it was actually really scary to stay in. And I started off very bravely, sleeping, turning my light off at night, and then I think we all, as a cast and crew, all our imaginations got going, and at a certain point, even the most skeptical in the crew were experiencing some kind of ghost or feeling, or yes, I mean, there were all sorts of things flying around, and I think I saw something moving underneath my door. It was at night, and the light was on, and I saw a shadow underneath the door, I'm convinced. And so from then on, I slept with my light on, and I didn't sleep very well, but hopefully at the service of the film. But it was very funny seeing these very skeptical crew members, in the morning telling me what they'd experienced. And then actually when we were filming, the bedroom where Rosalind and Julie sleep, that wallpaper is actually fabric. And the sound recorders said, in fact, a couple of people said they felt something touching them from behind the wallpaper.
Wow. I mean, to make a movie about the movie being made.
It was just everyone's imaginations were on fire.
Definitely. Wow, that is fascinating. And how many days were you shooting? How big was the crew?
We were about 40 of us, so not that small. I mean, given that it was such a restricted time. So yeah, about 40 of us, and we had about 6.5 weeks. So actually, that's quite good these days for a shoot. And actually, the first weekend, the chef who was, because the place where we were filming, Sargent Hall, is actually was a hotel. Well, it was a private house, then it became a hotel, and then when we were there, a wedding venue. Only no weddings weren't happening, obviously, because of COVID. But the chef who normally cooks for the wedding events was cooking for us, and he came down with COVID the first weekend. And I thought, okay, game really is over now. And anyway, they managed to sort of, he disappeared, and then we carried on, and we had amazing COVID supervisors who got us through to the end.
Oh wow, no, that's great. So then, I know you will take elements or characters that kind of carry through into your next or future films. Are there any actors or artists that you love to collaborate and kind of bring them into the cinematic world?
I mean, too many to mention. I mean, there's always something that travels from a previous film. It's not necessarily an actor or a character. It might just be an aspect of the story that sort of moves forward into the next thing. And I'm actually I don't know whether to say this. You might have to edit this bit out. But I'm coming to LA actually in December. With the idea of writing something there, but it doesn't mean I'm setting something in LA, because actually I spent a month in LA in November 2015 when I wrote The Souvenir. So maybe that I write something that's not connected with LA, or it might be.
Okay, I like the thank you for some goodies there. Awesome. And then, yes, what kind of emotions or relationships are you interested in kind of tackling next? I know The Eternal Daughter was such a personal film, and just the journey with your mother throughout the film too. I'm sure it was a lot. So what kind of things are you interested in thinking about next?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, and whatever I say, I'll probably end up doing the opposite, because the last couple of films back, I've thought, okay, I'm going to get away. Well, actually, before making The Eternal Daughter, I thought, after The Souvenirs, which were very personal, that I'm going to move away from the personal and do something genre, and that's not so close to home. And of course, I land right in the mother-daughter relationship. So I don't trust myself to say that I won't, but I again feel like, I'd like to sort of move away from what's familiar to me into new territory. So I think I'm going to push myself out of my comfort zone a bit. And like I say, this genre interest, not necessarily in the kind of ghostly territory again, but I've become obsessed with film noir. So I've watched so many film noir recently, not just of from the 30s, 40s, 50s, but also contemporary noirs, or all sorts anyway. So I don't know what will come out of that, but something I think.
Oh, amazing. I'm sure people will be excited. I just can't stop thinking about this film and how beautiful it is. So very excited.
Thank you.
Even more, yes, for sure. And just the personal aspects too. I thought about my own mother, and during this, I'm like, I need to call my mom. So thank you for that. But I'd love to know too, with The Souvenirs and kind of getting more into the U.S. market and people in the States being more exposed to your work. What was that like, and your relationship with Martin Scorsese as well? Do you think that's had an effect on your work at all?
Certainly, my relationship with Martin Scorsese, he's sort of helped me see other territory, other stories, and he was really. Like I say, before I made The Souvenirs, I was questioning what to do next, and he gave me the short stories of M.R. James, which I hadn't looked at for years and years, and he made me sort of think of the ghost story But before, well, this is more about the Eternal Daughter actually. But he gave me a book of Kipling short stories. One of which was one called They, which we see Julie reading in Eternal Daughter, and that story really had an influence over this film because it showed me. Well, I was very moved reading this short story. Really, I was in tears, and I'd never read a ghost story that had moved me so much. So it gave me some kind of key into this story. So I don't know, he's brilliant at sort of having a sense of what I might be interested in and nudging me in a particular direction.
Yeah.
And
that's awesome that he knows to give you a book and not a movie, as you spoke of.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Awesome. I know you had another part of that question that I don't feel. That you were asking me. Yeah.
About the States. Yeah, and coming.
Yes.
Coming to the United States. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was. I mean, that's been really great because for many years, when I was making my first 3 films, they weren't, when I was making them or straight after making them, they weren't distributed straight away in the States. And then there was a point, I think it was at around 2014, where my first 3 films got released on the same day. Kino Lorber released them, and so that was my first kind of taste of a US audience, and that was really nice actually. I didn't mind that it happened kind of in one go like that, and then with the souvenirs, I feel like I have with the dialogue there, which is really nice. And then of course I've got A24 being amazing with the last 2 films.
Friends at Kino, friends at A24 who are so great at just championing amazing work and bringing in all kinds of things for a mass audience. So that is awesome. Is there anything else that you want to say to the audience about The Eternal Daughter?
Not really. No, I think everyone's heard enough from me.
Just listening to you and talking to you has been great. Thank you so much, Joanna. Thank you, A24. And thank you for making this amazing film and sharing it with us. We look forward to even more.
Thanks so much, Imani. Real pleasure talking to you, and it's been really nice.